We can go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I couldn't be more excited for this dialogue. I think it's going to be great. But before we get started, I do want to run through just a few housekeeping items. The first thing is that your cameras are off and your microphone is muted, but the chat is open. So I encourage you to submit questions throughout the session, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. The other thing being that this meeting is being recorded, so you will be provided a recording of this webinar after the event. In case you're not able to join the whole thing or you have friends you want to share it with, it'll be a good one to share. But hi, my name is Alexis. I'm your host for today. I am Mortar's Director of Customer Experience and Growth. But before joining Mortar, I spent a handful of years in integrated marketing roles. And as I've gotten to understand our customers here at Mortar, a sentiment I often hear is that digital marketing can be overwhelming. We don't always have the time or resources to dedicate to digital marketing, and we don't always know how it's working. So today we really have three objectives. The first being, what does it mean to have a digital marketing strategy? The second being, how can you know where to start? And how do you know that it's working for your business? So I'm really excited to dive into these topics, but I definitely couldn't have this dialogue on my own. So we have a panel of all-stars today to have this conversation with. And so I want to give them a moment to introduce themselves. So panelists, if you want to turn your videos on, Matt, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, morning. Hi, Alexis. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And I'm Matt Devlin, founder and president of MG Marketing. This is actually our 10-year anniversary this month, so we're pumped about that. Woohoo. We're a full-service marketing agency focused on helping brands with their marketing strategy, their creative, and then technology to execute. So over the last decade, we've gained experience in the contract furniture and architectural products industry. And during that time, we've helped take several startups from the garage to private equity exit. So we know what it takes to build a successful marketing plan, launch it, and execute it successfully. I'm excited to share some of that insight today.
Awesome. Rachel?
Hey, Alexis, I'm excited to be here with you guys. I am currently the director of operations for a company called Peak Metrics. We're a small startup working in data analytics, both in the PR space as well as in the government space, where we analyze a lot of data, work through trends in the media and how to make them actionable for PR professionals and beyond. I also, prior to that, was with Compass Real Estate, whereas I got to slip into this commercial real estate focus with these awesome people. I did advertising and PR for their Midwest region, which was very exciting, learned a ton. And then prior to that, also worked for an influencer marketing platform where we helped brands and agencies advertise through influencers accounts on Facebook and Instagram. So very excited to be here. And chat through some digital marketing strategies.
Awesome. And Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wilde. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing and Creative Services at Feeney Inc. What that means is I oversee our website, our email marketing programs, social media, video, and PR. So I've got a lot under my umbrella. Feeney is a manufacturer of architectural products, including Design Rail, our aluminum railing system. I've been with Feeney since 2003, first as a consultant before coming on board full-time for digital marketing. Prior to that, I came from the Bay Area tech industry, so I bring a lot of that kind of expertise to bear.
Awesome. So needless to say, we have a panel of experienced experts kind of from across different functions, so it should be a great conversation, but I don't want to get stuck in intro, so let's go ahead and dive in. And I want to start with just a broad question to get us started. So what does it mean to have a digital marketing strategy? Jennifer, let's have you start.
Sure. Well, for Feeney, it's about baking digital into every marketing process and integrating across all channels. For example, digital marketing is part of our product development lifecycle. When we plan launches, we look at all of our marketing outlets, digital and traditional, and plan our media and rollout accordingly. Digital strategy should include audience definition and periodic research. So whether that is formal market research, feedback from the sales force in the field, or a panel discussion with trusted customers and end users. Part of that is knowing where your audience is. I know it sounds corny, but the internet is a big place and folks tend to stick to the platforms that they know and trust. For example, in late 2020, we participated in a webinar focus group with interior designers as part of our initiative to shift focus from purely AEC to more A&D. When we asked how many or how they get product information, they listed platforms that we had never heard of before, and they had not heard of some of the platforms that we were on. So that was a huge eye-opener. The last thing I'll say about digital strategy is that defining it based on audience means that you can be flexible and pivot midstream. So say you have a publication that offers targeted email and the first one you sent doesn't get as many leads as you'd hoped, you can pivot creative or try a different medium like social and see if that changes the results. And then, or you can shift to a different platform that is also used by the same audience.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're talking about understanding your customer and what platforms they're using, and then getting real comfortable with testing and learning on those platforms. So I love that. Matt, let's get your take.
Yeah, so I mean, Jennifer, you said it perfectly. As thorough and insightful. The only thing I would add to it is that you got to think of your digital marketing as a circle. It's connected and there's no end point. So every aspect of your marketing plan, digital and offline, both, your website, your paid, your search, your social media, your channel partners like Mortar, they're all part of that connected circle, and there is no start and end. You're constantly trying, testing, learning, evaluating, and improving. And when you do that and you think of it as the circle, you can start to make gains happen, results happen.
Yeah, I love that. I know I often hear, you know, we have our website and social media set up and that's our digital strategy, we're good to go. But you guys are talking about having more interconnectedness and more platforms in the mix depending on where your customers are. So I love that.
And Mortar's really great about having an ecosystem too, because, you know, once you guys integrated Material Bank and BIM, I mean, that's part of the same philosophy.
Yeah, you shouldn't, there's more than one platform that will work for you. So definitely important to have them connected. I'm going to jump to the next question, unless I see questions pop into the chat on these, but I'm going to keep us moving. So the next question from our customers that we typically get is, I'm in a sales and marketing role, which typically means I spend 90% of my time, 99% of my time doing all sales. So what advice can you give to people in this situation who are trying to carve out time for marketing in general, but also specifically digital marketing?
Yeah, I can take this one. I think that obviously those are two very big roles and cover a lot of worlds. And at the end of the day, they have to work in tandem, right? Like you have your sales people who are reporting back feedback, your sales end of it where you're getting feedback from potential customers, and that can really translate into how you plan your marketing. One of the huge benefits of having that role as a single person is that you can see both sides and see how they impact each other. Working in a startup environment, several startup environments, I obviously wore a lot of hats, and so definitely had some of these roles define me at any given point. And I found the key is to really take the feedback you're getting from your sales conversations and translate them into marketing materials as you're moving forward and planning your strategy. For instance, we're currently running a campaign where we have taken the three biggest qualms that people in sales in our sales conversations have reported, and we're translating them into different messaging sequences, targeting the people that we've already talked to, but then other people that fit that profile. And so by really having that integrated approach and taking advantage and seeing the positive sides of having both of those roles has really helped us in forming that strategy moving forward. But it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to have enough time in the day for anything.
Right.
I know at Mortar, I'm lucky enough to have, you know, one foot in marketing, one foot in sales, another foot in customer success. So I get to hear customer feedback across the board. And I think you can empower the most successful marketing strategies by incorporating that feedback you're getting on the sales side or customer service side. So
yeah, I would add to that for sure. From two roles, that if you're in a sales or business development role, I love hearing from you from our clients. When we get that sales feedback, that helps us build better marketing strategy. So if you're in, no matter what role you're in, but if you're in a sales and business development role, you're still doing marketing, and it's all about your own personal brand because your reputation is your brand. So you need to always be thinking about what image you're portraying. What does your LinkedIn profile look like? What type of sales process and consulting are you doing that builds your reputation and your brand? And then at the higher level, if you're a business owner or C-suite, we want sales side of the team engaged and at the table with the marketing team. That's when we get the best results and the best outcomes. And I give the analogy of going to battle. We want to arm the sales team with the right armor, weapons, tools and tactics so that they can grow sales right now, while meanwhile, we're growing the brand over time. Those two together is where you start to see success from the marketing agency side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. So I feel like if I were to sum up, we asked, what is a digital marketing strategy? I feel like if I were to sum up what you all said, I feel that it's, listening to your customers, incorporating their feedback, finding what platforms and tools they're already using, finding your way to kind of start in those spaces, and being really comfortable with testing, learning, and evolving over time. So I feel like that's a quick summary. So I might jump into our next topic. So many companies in this industry, we're talking commercial construction, AEC industry, even architects and designers, have long relied on traditional channels like word of mouth referrals, trade shows, magazine ads, and even direct mail as their marketing strategy. So for companies in this space, can you talk a little bit about how should they start to add digital into that mix? Jennifer, do you want to kick us off on that?
Sure. We've definitely lived this. So Feeney's been in the architectural product space for over 70 years, and we've been firmly steeped in traditional advertising. Since I joined in 2013, I've consistently pushed for more digital in the mix. The good news is that many publications that you may already be working with have a variety of digital advertising products in their offerings. So if you have a relationship with a publication, you can ask your account rep about diversifying your ad buy. At Feeney, we have a mix of traditional print ads with native content, sponsored articles, targeted emails, webinars, and instructional videos. And the publication generally helps with generating the content for that. A couple things to keep in mind with that process. One, be sure there are no conflicts of interest. So, other competitor brand advertising alongside your sponsored content, for example. Generally, that's it's understood, but sometimes when you have a sponsored article where you have a professional talking about, best practices, they may let slip some other competitor brands. So you just have to watch for that kind of thing. The other thing is review the content for brand consistency. So they're writing it, but it should align with your brand guidelines. And then ask for performance metrics before committing to the buy, and monitor the ROI. And they should be able to give you benchmarks. I'm always asking Alexis, so how are we tracking according to benchmark? And be sure to ask for leads from your digital content, because that's the best way to track ROI.
Yeah, I mean, you just went through a lot right there, so we might have to go back and unpack some of that.
Sure.
But Matt, same question to you. How does someone start to digitize the media mix they have?
Yeah, jump in with both feet is a simple answer. You better be bold and go for it, because the shift to digital is already here. Consumer brands showed us that years ago. It's catching up in B2B. It's a topic that we're always discussing with our manufacturer clients and pushing them along. And every single manufacturer client that's embraced digital has seen success and growth. Now, like Jennifer said, you better be fully integrated. You're offline and you're online. They need to be talking. You need to make sure that you're measuring it and that you're driving traffic, vice versa. Print can be tough if you're looking at just a standalone print ad as your way of advertising. It's incredibly difficult to measure feedback on that, and there's a delay. So you're gonna have to get really creative. Even things like QR codes, vanity URLs, to drive measurement off of those ads, that can be difficult. Doesn't mean you don't try. You still need to be doing that. And then you need to be looking to inspiration from consumer brands. Consumer brands had to go mobile responsive years ago for their websites, because what's everybody doing? They're looking like this on their phone at your website or on your social. And some manufacturing clients say, oh, well, we're in manufacturing, that doesn't apply to us. Now, guess what? We're all consumers. We're all sitting there with our phones right at our desk. Just because you're at work, you don't stop being a consumer. You're still using your phone. And so you need to make sure your site is mobile responsive. You need to make sure that your social is engaging for your audience. So look to consumer brands for inspiration. And then that's where also, when you're starting to integrate things, good channel partners like Mortar help you reach a more niche audience, because mass media is long gone. You got to be thinking niche, because that's what gives your audience, your consumers, your clients, a more targeted, relevant experience. And that's where our clients have seen success with Mortar, for example, because of the good content that's targeted and relevant directly to their needs. So got to be thinking about it in terms of a niche perspective as well.
And I love your comment too on just, for a long time we've thought, because I'm B2B, because I sell to other businesses or other professionals, I don't have to follow suit with what direct to consumer companies are doing. But at the end of the day, we're all consumers. And even when we're not at work, we are consumers and we're consuming information. And when we are at work, we still have needs, and those behaviors that we learn of, like, if I want to go buy a new dress, I'm probably starting with a search, to see what's out in the market. And so we learn those behaviors that ultimately come into our day job. And so it is time for B2B companies to know that you got to start with digital.
Yeah, just because, sorry, I was just going to say, just because you might get paid through a purchase order and a paper check still, and because it's a 6-month lead time instead of a 6-minute lead time, it doesn't mean that you still shouldn't be marketing digitally, just because of those two payment and time factors. Take those off the table and say, yeah, you don't necessarily need e-commerce, and know it's going to be a longer sales cycle, and then still fully engage on everything digital. But sorry, Jennifer, yeah, didn't want to interrupt.
No worries. I was going to say, at Feeney, we like to talk about pushing and pulling through the channel. So we sell through a dealer network, but we market to the influencers of the purchases. So the architects, the contractors, the interior designers. We need to reach those people as well, so they can, kind of push us through the channel while we're pulling through the dealers.
Yeah, sometimes the person who signs the check isn't always the person who had the first idea. So how do you include them in your strategy? Rachel, I'm going to turn it to you too and ask the same question. Where does someone start when they're looking to incorporate more digital?
Yeah, you all had great points. I think that, first of all, it's good to acknowledge that real estate and the greater built environment is a thousands of years old industry, which is really crazy to think about. And we've already adapted and changed and had to grow with it. But in my experience with Compass too, we had a lot of situations where I was told by stakeholders, whether that's real estate agents and leadership, that, listen, like, we have to be in this publication, like everyone else is in here, so we have to be in here. And if we're not, then we're missing it. But it would be, a traditional trade publication or like an out-of-home billboard. And so it's a matter of, yes, to be competitive and be seen as a leader in the space, you do have to assign some of your budget to those more traditional spots. But to your point, Jennifer, that maybe trade publication is reaching stakeholders that are not like the end consumer, the people who are buying houses. And so how can we incorporate, so for that particular campaign, we integrated some social and digital ads to highlight that, our agents are seen as experts in this field. And so, it's okay to still do traditional things, and it's invaluable to go to some trade shows and build that network, but very simply and tactically amplifying what you're doing in those areas on your social, on your via digital ads or campaigns is a great way to start, because you already know that you have that sign on from people that, yeah, you can dedicate a budget to going to this trade show, to being in this publication, because they've done that forever. but try to carve some of that to have a strategy around promoting what you're doing and being a leader in that space too.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from all of you is that it's not digital or traditional. It's not a this or that, right? It's how do we have both? And trade publications are a great way to start. I think the other thing is to look for alignment in what you're doing in a traditional sense, right? It's like a partner like Mortar, we're going to be at Neocon, we're going to be at Greenbuild, we're going to be at some of these things companies might already be investing in. So how can you choose digital platforms that align with what you're doing offline? So I love that.
And you know, and within the trade show space specifically, you better be bold and different if you're going to attend, because we are all incredibly distracted and every media source is competing for your time. It's not just your competitors, but the phone is competing for people's time. So if they have a down moment, what are they doing? It's into the phone. So don't just go and say, oh, we'll attend and we'll be connected with our digital as well. You better have a bold campaign and message there. Otherwise, people are going to cruise right by your showroom, down that hallway at Neocon or wherever it is, looking at their phone onto the next one.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to be bold.
Be bold.
Love it. We should get that on a t-shirt, wear it to the next show.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So my next question is, it can be scary to dive into something you've never done before. It can be scary to, let's say you want to digitize with your trade publication, but you're not really sure what makes it a good investment. And so my next question is, what are some factors that you consider when you're making a new investment? What tells you like, yes, this is where I should be spending my time and my money? So Matt, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's just like a marketing therapy session for clients. Sometimes it's like, okay, don't be scared. We got to do this. You're leading them along. It's true in life. Anything that you try that's new can sometimes be scary. Jennifer and Rachel are going to be more the subject matter experts on the tacticals of tracking, but it's all about that feedback loop, that just because you try something and launch it, you're never done. You've got to create, execute, test versions, and then learn, and then go back and improve. And that's the beauty of digital, is that it allows you to start small, and then you can scale up depending on where the results are, and you can shift quickly, because media buys can move, in the speed of a click, and within a minute. You don't have to be locked into something just because you've made a digital buy. You can be flexible, even within the same channel partner. And then there's a whole range of tracking that I'll leave that to the experts to talk about as to specifics on that.
Yeah.
Right. If it's something that that's resonating with your audience, that's a clear sign that it's working. And as Matt said, don't be afraid to try different content. Ask for feedback. Show it to your sales guys. Don't be afraid to switch messaging or platforms. If what you have isn't working, and lean on your partners, your industry partners, these platforms, your account reps. So what do you suggest? You're seeing everything out there. Like how would you pivot in this situation? And in terms of tracking, like I use Google UTM codes on everything. So it's like, I don't necessarily always have the time to go and run these detailed reports, but I know that the data is there, and the data has been there for years because I'm consistently adding codes to see, like, did this come from one of our marketing emails? Did this come from a social media post? Did this come from a PR campaign? Something that we pitched to magazines? Did it come from our marketing organization and our ad buys? So we're trying to, track where things go as much as possible. ROI is a really big thing to struggle with, but at least the tracking is there, so we can kind of do some intelligent metrics as to what is happening on that end.
Yeah. Well, and I like both of you are talking about, when you're scared to dive into digital, you're not sure if this is going to work. The advice here is start small and know that you're going to learn from it, and it might not be what you wanted, but you can ask the questions and continue to iterate until it's something that you like. So I like that sentiment. I'm seeing some fun questions pop into the chat. I think I'm going to save them to the end because we might get to some of these, but I do want to turn to you, Rachel, and ask, how do you measure success within your marketing mix, right? Similar to like, how do you know that I should be doing this? How do you know, yes, these are the channels I should be on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think something that we're always, as marketing professionals, um, always trying to improve and find quicker. I think those are kind of the main things. And the first thing to ask yourself and your team is, what are we measuring as, what are we defining as success? So are we looking to just drive more people to our website specifically, or are we looking for attendees for a certain event? Are we looking for more subscribers to our newsletters? So having those defined at the start is really most important. And then Jennifer, you've used this several times, but having benchmarks and asking for those benchmarks, having those at the forefront, and knowing what the industry standard is, but then also knowing what has worked in the past for you and being willing to change quickly. That again, Matt, you already covered this, but that's the beauty of digital, is that you can know pretty quickly, like what is working, what's not. And so whether it's defining that budget you're going to spend up to a point to see whether it works or not, or whether it's a timeline that you've given yourself to then change and pivot, those things are really important to define for yourself. And it will be different for everyone in terms of what your goals are for your company and your team and the specific campaign. I would also say it's very important to be bold within your own industry, like Matt was sharing, but it's also, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think if you're just getting started, you can look at what has made your competitors successful and what audiences have been engaging with them, and incrementally shift so that it is unique to you and that you have your own sort of definitions of success. But it's really great to learn from experts. I mean, I have done so much competitive research when I start out building campaign strategies, so that I know kind of where the baseline is and then what we can do to improve on that and push our specific industry and also our company to be better and be more successful.
Yeah, I love that. One theory I feel like I live by is that it doesn't have to be the newest, shiniest, coolest, most creative tactic to be the right tactic. There's a lot of examples out there of what's worked for other people, and sometimes it's not the cool new thing. It's something very simple and doable for other companies. So I love looking at what's worked for other people and seeing how you can leverage that for yourself. I love that. All right, so I think we've talked a little bit about what's a digital marketing strategy, how can you kind of start to integrate digital into your mix. So I want to get to the nitty gritty, the hard stuff, which is, how do you know if this is working? So Rachel, you kind of indicated this, but one thing people tout about digital is its measurability and your ability to know, like, is it working? Is it not working? So can you talk just a little bit more about your general approach to measurement?
For sure. I think it's about having those tracking parameters in place, very at the baseline, what Jennifer was sharing, and also taking time to review what you've done. I think it's so easy to keep running forward and doing the next thing. And this campaign is, I think it's safe to say, is not the only thing on your plate at the time. And so it's really easy to be like, great, ran this, month-long campaign, that's done, moving on to the next messaging sequence, whatever. But it's important to take time, have set time in advance to review what went well, what didn't, how to improve, because I think so often as professionals, we just want to keep doing the next thing. And it's really easy to maybe not be strategic by not reviewing what has worked in the past. And again, in terms of measurability, it's about defining what is important to you at the outset of launching a campaign, so that you know what to track throughout and at the end, and how to move forward from there. It'll be different for every channel, and just based on what you're defining as success, which we kind of chatted about before. But it's definitely, it's important to make sure that you're using the data that you have. There's so much out there that you can track. And so being strategic about how you look at it and taking time to analyze it is really important.
Yeah, one thing I love that we've incorporated into our process at Mortar is when we have a new customer come onto the platform, we love to talk to them up front and be like, what is it that you're hoping to see out of Mortar, and how can we keep that as, you know, top of mind as we work together on this platform? So are we looking for leads? Are we looking for brand awareness? Are we looking for engagement? Let's set those metrics up front, and then let's have a regular cadence of checking in to see how that's going. Because yeah, you can't make changes if you're not taking a look at it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Matt or Jennifer, anything to add there? Otherwise, I have another question for you.
Yeah. I mean, I can give two tactical items to think about. One would be conversion tools on your site. It's not good enough to just have a contact form or a quote form on your website. I mean, who cares? Nobody wants to fill those out. But if you offer some type of engaging interactive tool where you get to design something, build something, you get something of value, you get some industry insight in exchange that helps either with your project or industry knowledge, what have you, now you're offering a hook and something of value that's enticing people to convert and drive actionable leads. So that's one way to think about how your website can be measured for you and drive results. And then the other is ask your reps. In the contract furniture, architectural products industries, a lot of these clients that we work with have independent reps, and they won't sugarcoat. They'll tell you if your marketing sucks, if it's not working, or that you'll just know by indifference. Hey, did you use that tool? Are you using this? Are you using that? And like, what are you talking about? Well, there's your answer. Now, either that or they're a totally unengaged rep. You need to fire them. So ask your reps too.
Yes, definitely ask for feedback on the people who should be using it and should be excited about it. Awesome. So then my next question is about managing expectations of platforms, right? So not every platform, not every placement is going to garner the same results, right? Some things are more geared towards brand awareness. Some is more towards conversions or lead generation. So how do you help to manage expectations on what a platform or placement should do for you, that ROI that everyone always wants to see?
Yeah, I think there's a huge focus on ROI, and I don't think that ROI tells the whole story. It's the biggest thing I think that we struggle with. Certainly we can count the number of leads from a campaign or white paper downloads, that kind of thing. In our case, we sell primarily through a dealer network. So tying to direct sales is pretty much impossible. We can look at lead generation by audience and correlate sales to see if there's an upward trend. But ROI could be something a little fuzzier. So I'll give you an example. We have a photo contest, and it's we primarily get entrants that are contractors that have installed our products. They're very proud of their work. They're craftsmen, and they want to show off these photos. And a big vehicle for this is on Instagram. So I do a lot of outreach through Instagram, and as a result, so one of the results that we get out of it is we get high quality photos of our products that are new and fresh, and different and intriguing ways that our products are used. So we get new marketing collateral. Then we get leads for possible preferred, or we have a preferred contractor program. So we get people that into the company that become brand loyalists. And then we get recognition because we get to showcase these contractors' work, and we get their buy-in and their testimonials. So there's a lot of good things that happen as a result of that program that have nothing to do necessarily with sales, at least not directly.
Yeah, definitely. Matt, how about you? How do you balance the ROI?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as a marketing agency, we get put in that hot seat after we make a recommendation, campaigns run, they're sitting there, okay, how did it do? Give us our results. And so I like to think of it in two parts. One is the brand building aspect of what we're doing, and the other is the lead gen aspect of what we're doing. Because brand building happens over time, sales happen overnight. So one, just understand that kind of context. And we talk about that with the client. Hey, was this a brand building campaign? Okay, we're looking at a longer horizon. Our metrics and our deliverables are a little bit different. Then when it comes to lead gen, absolutely. It's what have we done for y'all lately that's important. And we find that, of course, with smaller clients, we've got to be really nimble, super efficient, and tight with budget because it's obviously smaller and the expectations are higher to drive actionable leads right away, versus with larger clients that have a little more runway, a little more time to invest and realize that bigger projects have longer lead times and you're trying to build out a pipeline. So it's about educating the client that it doesn't happen overnight either way. And you've got to make sure that we've clearly agreed on what those benchmarks are. Because I never want to mislead a client and just say, hey, by building out a brand new website and having an integrated campaign and some Google spend and a couple of great channel partners, and we're posting on social, that now all of a sudden you're going to have instant leads. We've got to use benchmarks and past experience, which any good marketing partner or marketing director internally should know to be able to help lead you along to say, okay, at 90 days after, here's what historically you should be expecting at 180 and so on, so that you're fully aligned. That's as long as we're managing and aligned on expectations, then we see successful outcomes.
Yeah. And one thing I always tap into too is this idea of a funnel, right? Like it starts with awareness, then it starts with them liking what they're aware of, then they might engage with it, then they might consider it, and then they might take an action. So that takes time, and you've got to have, things happening at all stages to ultimately see that lead gen that a lot of people are looking for.
It's so true. And you got to constantly remind the parties at the table of that. And the big brands that are super successful and are advertising at the Super Bowl, for example, they understand that. So we don't need to always reinvent everything, but tailor it for the specific audience and industry that we're looking at.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Rachel, I have another question. I think your perspective is going to be really interesting on this one. So let's say that a company decides to start with social as their first digital channel. Can you talk about some things to look at on social specifically that tells us this thing is definitely on and doing something for me?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Like, Mike, is this thing on type analogy? It's so true. I think it's hard to get started on social media, but as you're creating content, it's about listening to your audience, looking at engagement, and really building that community. And so the initial like early adopters and people who are listening to you, it's about engaging with them deeply, seeing what they care about, and leaning into that more. Actionably, I think that we had a lot of success to build campaigns around even the tools on Instagram of like this or that as you're sharing, for Compass, it was, sharing specific homes or like fireplaces within homes. You can really get more engagement and see what your audience cares about as you're building these campaigns on your Instagram stories, or when you're looking at your entire feed and seeing who's engaging with the content the most and which types are exciting. Again, digital and social is awesome because you can see that in real time. You can look at your insights and see, where more viewers are coming on. And I would say also to look at, again, in the spirit of seeing what other people are doing well, and what if you have a competitor or a certain other like industry partner that aligns with you well, and seeing where those audiences are most engaged and getting the most out of the content that's posted. I think it's really fair to try to look at what they're doing and balance it out and work in tandem so that your audiences can also get value out of what you're posting and sharing. And it's about just really listening and seeing what everyone cares about. So it is challenging though, for sure, to get started, but it's about just creating content. I think it's just takes a little bit of time to build that up, but it's about starting somewhere,
Yeah. And I love this or that trends on Instagram, and even like using the question box. I've seen people post, what kind of content do you want to see from us? And people will share. They'll be like, I really only want to see behind the scenes. Okay. now we kind of know how to pivot, or you can do those quizzes where it's like they can give the right answer, but really you can see how many people answer each question. Great tool to get feedback on social content.
For sure. And I think that even though this is in the context of organic content, it's still the measurability and success metrics are still in place, where to really define what you are looking to get out of this platform and who you're looking to reach, and having that be clear, and then testing different elements to get to that point and seeing what people care most about.
Awesome. Okay, I'm checking time. We have about 20 minutes left. We have 4 really great questions in the chat that I want to make sure we get to. But I have 2 more questions I want to ask, and then we'll jump to the chat. So my next question is, Jennifer, one thing, we haven't talked a ton about it, but I love about your story is that you've really been leading the charge at Feeney in adopting a more digital way of working. What insights or advice can you give on communicating the value of that shift? And what metrics did you use to like lean on to tell that story and like get that buy-in?
So we have definitely been on the forefront in digital marketing in our space. We sit in an interesting intersection between building materials and manufacturing, neither of which has been seen as technology savvy. And I came from a high-tech background. We had the benefit of having leadership that had foresight to give me the freedom and leeway to kind of take the ball and run with it. But starting a program now, and we have started on different platforms, so this is something that I have a little bit more familiarity with in a recent context, is I would say do your homework first. So demonstrate that you know what audience you want to reach and where they are online. Then plan on a content strategy that hopefully allows you to be consistent with content delivery and to find specific measurable results. Also tie into other marketing efforts, so it becomes an integrated strategy. So this is just something that you're augmenting, that everything is woven together. It's not just cowboying on its own. And then when it comes to platforms like Mortar, again, lean on your salesperson or account rep, and you can actually have them give you information like, you tell me, how can I make this a compelling story? How can I sell this platform to my executives? They're more than happy to give you information to use in a presentation, right? Because it's in their best interest.
Absolutely. Okay, I changed my mind and we're gonna jump to the chat. Who's some non-planned questions. But I love this question so much. So in a non-e-commerce scenario for a manufacturer selling through B2B channels, if your marketing budget is limited and you had to choose between AdWords to drive online engagement versus SEO, which tactic would you recommend? Anyone want to take this?
I'll start quick. Easily, you need to start with SEO, in my opinion. If you can't truly do a little bit of both, you own your website always. It's always on. It never complains. It's always there, hopefully generating leads for you. As soon as you stop paying the Google pay-per-click beast, it stops driving leads. Now, on that organic side, if you invest in it, it will continue to pay dividends and rank for you over time. So I would start there for sure. But then, there's always a but, consider at least putting a token amount into pay-per-click. Google will never admit this, but there is a pay-to-play element to it behind the scenes, that if you're investing even $100 a month in pay-per-click, it's going to have a little bit of impact on your organic as well. Again, they'll never admit that because they want to take this perfectly defined approach that organic is over here and then our AdWords team is over here, and never do the two intersect. But we all know that there's a little bit of truth to that.
I would have to agree. And I think that the SEO is something that you can control. So it's not just making sure your site is structured correctly and that there are no dead links or what have you. But it's also about what are your customers searching for? How can you put those keywords organically into the content that you have, or design content for those keywords? So that way you bump up your own natural search placement on there. And then, as Matt said, the great thing about digital is that, you try to like advertise in Architectural Digest and it's $1 billion, right? But you can do Facebook ads and they're super cheap and they're hyper targeted. Same with Google. You can, like, if you just, like you said, throw in $100 a month and you will see benefit for that.
Yeah, I love that you call out invest in organic with the right content, because I think that's my caveat too, is if you're investing in, organic, but just on like optimizing your homepage and, making a new form, I don't know that that would be, the best investment. But if you're going after organic content that your customers are searching for, that's a great investment to make. All right, so next chat question is, how specific are you with your audience and your customers? And can you talk a little bit about each of your personas at your company? So not necessarily a deep dive, but just maybe who you serve. Jennifer, do you want to start?
Sure. We have several audiences that we cater to. One is an architect audience that is encompassing designers as well. So it's more of a design focused, design savvy, trends, that kind of thing. And then kind of adjacent to that is homeowners. So it's architects and interior designers, I think, are closer to a homeowner type audience. Then we have contractors. So we need to make things, we just did a whole initiative on how we can, so our tagline is Feeney makes it easy. So we want to stay true to that promise. And how do we make it easy for contractors who have to install our products, who get things in boxes and need to know how to assemble everything. And then we also manufacture to a very special niche audience, which is steel fabricators. So these are artisans that are creating railings that use our cable rail infill. So it's a very, very specific market there. And then of course we have our dealer audience. So those are kind of the personas that we're looking at. And we've done a deep dive on each of these as to what are their pain points, what are they looking for, what platforms they're on, and how we're going to reach them. And that is traditional and print.
Mm-hmm. Matt or Rachel, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I'll tackle it briefly. Jennifer said it well. There's a lot of overlap with our manufacturing clients in terms of the same exact type of personas, specifically with architects and designers, then also into the commercial furniture dealer channel. That's another persona that many of our clients are trying to tackle and reach. And then there's facility managers. But of course, it's going to vary depending on your industry, what you manufacture, so on. The key for us is to really help our clients understand that persona as deeply as possible. So we'll write a brief of what we talked about together in terms of the persona, but then we challenge our clients to go out and meet with those clients that define the persona, meet with their suppliers, meet with other industry experts, to build information and actually survey and sample. And we help clients do that, where we formalize it in terms of surveys and focus groups to basically get as deep as we can in terms of understanding. Because we want to take it from a generalized persona whenever possible to really deep insights down to the detail of the buyer or the influencer's purchasing habits, so that we can better market to them and serve their needs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would also add, I like to think of it in the B2B space of, one, what their role is, what their objective is, but also like their comfortability with our offering, right? Like, how aware of it are they? Like, what's their attitude towards it? Are they like, I love digital, can't wait to join? Or are they like, that thing doesn't work, not for me? And so I kind of use that to segment out even further on, who are we talking to and how do you approach?
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, I was just going to say that sometimes you talk to people who say they're just not ready. There's no point fighting this, fighting the current or the tide on this particular opportunity.
Yeah, and it's important to know, like, those people are out there, and someday we might be like, that's the fish we're going to go after, but that day might not be today, and that's okay. Awesome. Okay, Rachel, anything to add there?
No, you guys covered in terms of like defining your audience. For when I was at Compass, which is more applicable for some of the people we're talking to today, it was defining, getting that lower end of the funnel, the homeowners, targeting that audience, or potential home buyers and sellers. And then our other arm was agent recruitment. So promoting Compass as the brokerage to work with as a real estate agent. And so it was really interesting to differentiate those audiences and then also test against them. And then in terms of like running campaigns, we got very specific on what kind of people we wanted to target. And so when you're setting up a campaign, the variables are, messaging, creative, what platform you want to run it on, but then also we segmented it into specific audiences to see who was most engaged with a certain kind of content. So it's definitely worth to not only test channels and messaging, but also test audiences and who's most receptive.
Test. I'm sensing a trend.
Yeah, I don't think that will ever, the industry is changing fast, but that is one thing that is never going to change. You got to test.
That will stay. Awesome. Okay, so this next question, it's coming from a business on the service and consulting side, and I'm going to summarize a little bit. But essentially, we have not found a replacement for face-to-face meetings. Although we have our marketing materials in a digital format when we use social media. So how do you replace face-to-face meetings? Anyone want to take this first?
I'll take a stab at it. It's a challenge that I can somewhat relate to because we sell consulting, we sell ideas, we sell design. So face-to-face meetings have historically been tremendously valuable for us as well. Referrals, that's how I grew our business. And so, of course, there's been an obvious evolution there that's had to occur. I'm speculating without knowing this particular company's issues or challenges, but I would challenge them to look at what was the content that was being socially posted, and then what were those sales tools. Yeah, if you just convert your brochure or your catalog or whatever to a PDF, and then you just post vanilla generic social posts, they're like, hey, check out our 5 offerings. And it's kind of a regurgitation of what you're already saying in your brochure or on your website. Brutal honesty, nobody cares. The digital space is tough and cutthroat in that regard. And so you really got to get creative and think about, how do we resonate? Because social media, for example, it needs to be an authentic look at your brand and what you're up to. It shouldn't just be another mouthpiece for your corporate marketing to repeat the same things. Nobody cares about that. They want to see behind the scenes, what you're doing. What was the employee picnic that was going on? Whose birthday, what goofy things are going on in the office. So you're gonna have to find some way to define an authentic voice in your social media, or offer some really insightful consultative value, where you're offering up industry resources, tools, tips, things like that. So that's kind of some speculation, but hopefully some insight that that particular viewer can take and just go take an honest look at their social and their PDFs that they've been putting out there.
I'll go one step further. Sorry, I'll go one step further. And social is about conversation. So it's not about you talking about yourself. We invest time to go out and respond to other people's posts and to share other people's content and really be part of that community. So for me, social media, what's exciting about social media is that kind of interplay. You get a direct connection to people, and people want to talk about themselves. Right? So like find out what they're interested in, promote their projects, like that kind of thing, So then when you start to get involved in that way, but in a non-creepy way, that's when you start to have like a little bit of, synergy. And I've actually, I met one of our now preferred contractors in person. I just happened to be chatting with him on Instagram, and he was like, hey, want to come down to Scotts Valley and see a project? And I was like, sure, so I was like, I drove down there, I took a bunch of hats, and I was just like, let's see where this goes. And he's been a terrific brand advocate. So it's, you never know what's going to happen when you start these conversations with people on social media. And that's really how you should kind of like shift the focus for social.
Yeah, I feel that you guys went in the same direction that I did. I think it's a content value question, right? Is your content not delivering value to your audience? And a distribution challenge, right? Is it going in the right place? So I think a lot of people like to hold tight to their chest, like what's going on and what their secret sauce is, but it pays to educate your customers. It pays to provide value that makes them trust you for the service you're ultimately going to provide. So work to share that out with the world.
Mm.
Awesome. Okay, we have 4 minutes left, so I don't know that I'm going to get to my favorite question, which is always about a favorite campaign, but we do have one more question in the chat. And Rachel, I'm going to tap you for this. So the question is, I'm curious how the panelists feel about social media censorship and privacy concerns impacting advertising and marketing campaigns, and how that should play into your media mix. So with more regulations going on with how you can track people online, how you can target them, more transparency, or even ad blockers popping up, how do you weigh that in kind of choosing where to go with your marketing dollars?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. And again, not having all of the context of where, like what this current strategy is, I think the interesting thing about social media and digital advertising is that the consumer really doesn't choose to consume the media that you're putting out there. You're paying to get that, and compared to traditional media, when you're advertising in a magazine or a newsletter or something, people are paying and know what they're going to get from reading that. And so it's a little more natural, like they've chosen to go to read that magazine or something like that. And so when it comes to social media and censorship, I think it is a challenge because there's parameters put in place, but it's positive to a certain extent. And then to get around or to navigate that, it's about having an authentic voice as your brand, so that it is natural when somebody sees or engages with your ad on social media. It's not a surprise, and it doesn't feel random. And you've also created organic content and have been on and have engaged with your audience on different platforms, so that it feels a lot more natural and not surprising and not abrupt. It's more delivering content that they care about. Which actually, coincides with the questions that were answered before of, is your content actually providing value? Because I think it's nurturing that audience will allow your ads to get in front of more applicable people. And you won't have an immediate unsubscribe or blocking this because they're so surprised and taken off guard that you're trying to reach them. So it's about really understanding your audience, creating valuable content, both organically and in your other channels, to get through some of that noise and censorship that's taking place.
Awesome. All right. Well, that brings us right to time. So excellent conversation. So many nuggets. We'll be sending out a recording of this and recapping learnings from this conversation and doing more of these. We're going to do these once a month. So feel free to continue to join us. And I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you so much, Alexis.
Yeah. Thanks, Alexis.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.